interests me is the democracy of storytelling, that it goes across gender, it goes across borders, it goes across boundaries. And like one of the great things about being a writer, one of the great privileges about being a writer is that you become alive in a body that's not your own. As for me, like in relation to the tightrope walk, and I have vertigo. I couldn't walk on a rope that's on the bleeding ground, let alone a rope that's like quarter of a mile in the air. But then, you know, you try to understand what it might have been like to do that walk. But what was more interesting to me, you know, Philippe Petit called it the art crime of the century, and really it was. It was fantastic and beautiful and otherworldly. But really what interests me is the people who are in the real world, the anonymous lives, the little corners of human experience that we don't necessarily always think about. You know, it starts out with this guy, you know, this beautiful moment of tight roping, like this angel almost in the sky. And yet it goes down then to the depths of the city, and that's where I sort of, you try to find redemption, you try to find joy, you know, and you talk about what is meaningful to the human heart. This thing that Faulkner talks about. He talks about that all writing is about the human heart in conflict with itself. And this is what you try to get with these characters who are on the street. My father-in-law, my wife's father, Roger Hawke, was in the World Trade Center, and he was in the second building to come down. He got out with just minutes to spare, and he walked up through the city and came to our apartment, and my little daughter Isabella jumped up into his arms and said, "Poppy, Poppy," but then she sort of ran away, and she hid for a little while, and I asked her, you know, "What's wrong, love?" And she said, "Poppy's burning," because she could smell the smoke from his clothes. And I said, "No, Poppy's not burning at all. It's just, you know, that's what it is. It's the smoke on his clothes from the buildings that came down." And then she said, "No, but he's burning from the inside out." And I thought that's the sort of thing, you know, that children say, and they don't, you know, they don't know how acutely, you know, prescient that happens to be, or you know, how it touches so much in your life. It's because, you know, maybe we all were burdened from the inside out in some sort of way, or a nation was burning from the inside out, no matter where it happened to be. And anyway, I never forget that, and I began to think, like, how do you write about this? And then I remembered Philippe Petit and the tightrope walk, and I thought, well, that's an interesting way to look at, you know, because when you mention the World Trade Center, you know, it automatically is loaded now, and it seemed to me, that's an interesting way to talk about where we are now. And then it struck me that, you know, in 1974, when Petit did the walk, the soldiers were coming home from Vietnam, and at the same time, like 30 years later, then the soldiers are coming home from or going to Iraq. So Vietnam sort of substituted for Iraq. Questions of technology, because the first emails were sent in 1974, and there were hackers, computer hackers were there. Questions of faith, questions of belonging, questions of art. And almost, if you took that time, you could fold it all over onto the present time. What was most interesting to me was the ordinary lives of the people down below. So, you know, the people who were priests, the people who were soldiers, the mothers, the hookers, you know, the whatever it happened to be, to try and capture the city, and also to try and capture something sort of unconscious about where we happen to be now. My favourite character in the book is not, say, the tightrope walker at all. He's just a way to get into the book, but it's like the hooker who is, say, in the Bronx, and she's a 38-year-old grandmother by the name of Tilly, and also this guy Corrigan, who's an Irish priest, and these people who are not alive somehow become alive for you as an author, and that's part of the charge as well. Trying to get them is hard sometimes, trying to get that voice, because obviously, like, I'm a white male middle class, and then you're trying to channel the voice of a 38-year-old African American woman who lives on the streets. But that's part of the beauty of fiction, is that you can make that sort of reach. You hope to become like a bit of a ventriloquist, to capture the voices of the city, and the ordinary moments as much as those big extraordinary moments.